Hello everyone and welcome to TableTakes presented by Gen Con. I am the Mike Robles, this week joined by fake Tifa and real Tifa. It's the battle of the Tifas. Welcome Tifas.
Hi, I'm Tifa.
Which one of us is the real Tifa?
The world may never know.
Emma is off at PAX East doing a bunch of cool stuff for her game and demoing and doing a bunch of stuff. Christian has disappeared into the void. We hope that he shall return before next week. That's all I got. Yeah.
I think everybody at home has to clap to bring him back out of the voice.
You have to believe.
Yep.
That's the thing. You got to believe. Much like Tinkerbell, you must clap to bring Christian back. All right, let's get into it. We got headlines. We got lots of headlines. Starting off, we'll start off with something that's very relevant to both Derek and I, because we both play a lot of video games, and we both played through these video games. And Tifa's played the sub game to this video game. Gearbox and Borderlands have announced a card game based off the character Tiny Tina. Tiny Tina was from Borderlands 2. She was a DLC, and her DLC was basically a D&D campaign set in the Borderlands world that you played through.
Yeah.
Character, very popular.
I think it was probably my favorite part of that game.
It was
not only were all the D&D jokes really spot on,
really good,
but they managed to actually take the premise of a bunch of idiots play D&D and turn it into a remarkably emotional arc in that storyline.
It's really good.
Really good.
It's one of the best DLCs that they put out. For fans of Tiny Tina, they're making a tabletop game. They're doing a card game called Tiny Tina's Robot Tea Party. And it's essentially what if a bunch of vault hunters were just sitting around having tea, and it's a card game where you're going to build claptraps. Claptraps, as we all know and love from Borderlands, are the small little mechanical dudes that are very vocal.
And can't get upstairs.
Cannot get upstairs. And the goal is to try to be the first one to build a claptrap. It's a card game, and you can drop arms and legs. You can mess with one another, and you can drop arms and legs in wrong spots. You can blow up your claptrap to rebuild.
Can you drink tea?
I'm sure you could. I mean, I'm sure you'd probably just bring your own tea.
Oh,
BYOT.
It's a BYOT.
BYOT. Borderlands BYOT edition.
I think they were during the announcement of Borderlands 3 yesterday. They took a little bit of a detour to cover for some time and talked about the game at length. And I think
they read the manual.
Yeah, but I think apparently partway through the manual, they just stopped and started doing magic cards with the cards.
So they brought up two folks in a magic trick. It's pretty interesting. Nerdvana Games and XYZ Games are the ones that are partnered with Gearbox Publishing to put this out. It's actually available now. You can go to the Gearbox site. I think if you Google it, Tiny Tina's Robot Tea Party, you can go buy it now. I got a friend of mine that was like, "Hey, I'm gonna buy you a copy of this game at PAX." So I think I also gonna owe him $20 now. It's $20, so it looks
not bad.
It's not bad. It's super fun, based in the known universe. Looks like a quick play.
Did they announce if it was going to stores at all, or if it's just through them?
I think they said it was eventually going to be in stores. I know when they made the announcement, they were like, "This is like the first shipment was there at PAX East. It's the very first way to get it." And as of this morning, before the show started, it was available to order on their site.
It's kind of funny that it almost seems to be the first, I think, that I can remember, physical game that has had that almost video game element of we're announcing a new game, also it's available now. Because for a long time, video games were like, hey, we're totally coming out with this game. They wouldn't give you a date, and it would be in production for 8 years, and you would get a series of trailers and be super excited, and then you would hopefully get something that was good. And it seems like the pendulum has started to kind of swing the other way. Yeah. Where Apex Legends was a really big one that did that with. Yeah. There's been a couple other ones where it's been like, all right, game's out, go play it. This is the first you've heard of it. It's amusing to see that applied to a physical game.
Yeah.
Which has a lot more distribution hurdles to get over.
Yeah. For someone that plays an awful lot of video games, that is one of my favorite things during the big conferences to be like, here's this awesome game, you can go download it right now. Because I'm always like, give me the phone, I gotta go get it. But yeah, I agree. I think it's really interesting. I would love to see this trend continue with board games or tabletop games. I think it'd be really neat if there's here's this thing. Oh, by the way, go buy it now.
Well, it's such a fun surprise if you're at PAX East.
Oh yeah.
Just be like, okay. I mean, there's the personally, one of the things I love about cons was always walking around in the exhibit hall and turning a corner and just finding a thing that you didn't know about.
Yeah.
But as you get more kind of invested in the hobby, and someone like me who is spending way too much time on Kickstarter, it's extremely rare that you come across a game that you didn't already know a lot about. So some of that joy is kind of lost from going to the show. So it's neat to see companies bringing some of that back.
You know who I can see doing this, and I think this group would be able to pull it off. Lone Short Games.
Absolutely.
I can see Cellmaker I can see his brain and like the hamsters like running at full speed, and he's like, "We're gonna announce this thing. Also, when I announce it, I want people to buy it right then and there."
Actually, I could see him announcing it on Thursday and saying, "You can't buy it until you solve this puzzle." So I hope you get through it before Sunday.
Yeah, that
Also,
is true.
with his connections, he could pull it off too.
Yeah. He's got enough. I can see him. So, Mike, you're probably at PAX East doing a bunch of stuff. You're not watching this right now.
We already
but
signed
you
him up
should.
for it. He's agreed to
You
it.
should. You're gonna do this, and we're gonna talk about it later.
We'll tell you about it later.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it later. Speaking of video games, going to board games, and we've got actually quite a bit of stuff. This week is kind of video game tabletop heavy, which is interesting. Ni no Kuni 2, it's Japanese RPG. Is
Adorable.
It's going to be a tabletop game. I think it's really neat. Steamforged Games, you said, did Dark Souls?
Yeah, they did a Dark Souls board game that was super popular.
Yeah, I
Dark
remember.
Souls board game, Dark Souls card game,
Yep.
Resident Evil, and Guild Ball.
Yeah.
Neat. All right. Well, they're bringing this Japanese RPG to tabletop, and it's going to be like a minis game, but not.
Well,
Not like a
looks
super-
like, no, I mean, it looks like they have some minis.
Okay.
The company is known for producing fantastic minis.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like the game is very minis focused. It seems like it's a board game with a lot of components in the thing. But I think the adventurers from the video game or that kind of aesthetic, I'm not sure about the details. Those are miniatures.
Yeah.
But it seems like they're more just components that you're going to move around the board the same way that you'd have a player token or a meeple or something like that. Just a little more fancy.
That's how the Dark Souls one was. Yeah.
And what's interesting about this is your player's going to be on a quest to defeat 5 monsters before facing a final boss, and it's only a 30-minute playtime. And you don't have to necessarily defeat the bosses, because when you get to the final boss, or when you get to, not the monster, when you get to the final boss, depending on how many monsters you've beaten, that's going to be the difficulty level of the final boss.
I think that's really neat.
It's super. I mean, in RPGs, there's always an option to run away.
Yeah.
You can run away in the middle of battle. You sit there and run in place for 2 seconds, and then take off.
I was about to say nobody ever does that, and then I was realizing I was thinking about tabletop RPGs. No party
nobody
of
ever runs
players
away.
ever runs away
No.
from a monster, no matter how bad it's going.
They're like, we're gonna die, and we're like, yeah. Today is a good day to die, as Rufio once said, before he died. Spoilers for Hook. What?
Rude.
That movie's like 30 years old. People.
What? Xander hasn't seen
It's
it.
always somebody's first time.
It is. All right. We've got our Talsorian Games releasing more books for The Witcher.
Which another video game. So with this one, I feel like The Witcher immediately had the plan to have both audiences, because within the original video game, they had a card game,
Yep.
Gwent,
Yep.
which they've had Gwent become its own game digitally and physically. Is that?
There are physical cards you can purchase, but I think they were only promotional.
Yeah. Yeah, but really interesting. And now they're coming out with a more Witcher RPG
Yeah,
books.
the RPG was released at Gen Con last year.
Right.
So these are more expansions for it.
Yeah, but they're very much blending tabletop and video games, and I feel like that was always a part of their world.
The video game is based on a series of, I believe, Polish novels.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Oh,
So it's
neat.
based on Polish novels, and I'm pretty sure I heard that those novels were at least heavily inspired by that guy, the author, playing role-playing games. I don't know the veracity of that, because there's always that whole this series of fantasy novels was based on my home D&D campaign.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know, but it's a very, very natural fit.
Yeah. So I think that's really cool.
The Witcher is also going to be a Netflix series coming, and there's
Oh,
there's a very
wow.
there's a very
I forgot about
funny
that.
there's a very funny satire article that's going around recently that says Witcher production on hold because lead character cannot stop accepting side quests. Which is
That's
just
so good.
It's brilliant, because that's The Witcher. Anyways, The Witcher's going to have the Lords and Lands, a GM screen with some additional rules and character options. A Witcher's Journal, which is a monster book, and this is the thing that Fake Tifa pointed out, is this monster book usually only has 35 monsters in it.
Yeah, so
It's not a lot.
Yeah, it seems like instead of having the kind of monster manual-esque where you have as many monsters as you can provide, The Witcher is a pretty focused universe.
Yeah.
So it's not the kind of thing where traditional D&D has gone many places and has lots of weird-ass monsters, so that you can kind of pick and choose from for what's going to match your campaign. The Witcher has its own like aesthetic and thing, and it's very much about that richness of the world. So it seems like instead what they're doing is presenting a handful of monsters. I think what I saw quoted was 35. And then giving each of those monsters multiple pages to talk about their history, how they fit into the world, how you could use them in adventures, which I think is a very interesting alternate way to take that.
Yeah.
This just makes me sad because we're like, oh, we killed this monster. And I'm going to read through the books and be like, oh, it turns out this monster was just a single mother trying to do her best to raise her family in the backwoods of a bog that she was forced into, and we've killed her.
So Grendel.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, that would be extremely Witcher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that would be extremely Witcher.
That would be right in there.
There's also the Witcher Book of Tales, which is going to have 6 adventures. So if you've played the Witcher RPG and want to get more Witchery, you can pick this up later this year,
Which year?
or next year, or whenever it comes out. It's been announced. It's coming. There's a link in the chat. Also from our Talsorian Games, Cyberpunk Red, more appropriately as it's named. A new edition premiering at Gen Con. So it's weird because we're talking about it's a new edition using the classic system.
But with new technology updates.
Yeah, we don't know what that means yet.
I guess in quotes.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm very curious what new technology upgrades will mean to a print tabletop game.
Yeah.
I don't, maybe they have the backing and they're going to try to do online digital tools like D&D Beyond or something like that. It would be fantastic to have other games kind of brought to that level. That would be fantastic. But I don't know, maybe there's something else going on. Because the interesting thing, too, is that both of these games, R. Talsorian's publishing The Witcher, R. Talsorian, created and is publishing Cyberpunk, but then CD Projekt Red is the video game company that put out The Witcher, and they're also putting out Cyberpunk anytime now.
Yeah.
So it also seems like the RPG is apparently supposed to bridge the gap from the classic setting to the new video game, which
that's really cool.
There's a lot of interesting relations, it seems, between the two companies.
I think that's really smart. Yeah.
So maybe here's the thing, and I was originally the joke was maybe they're just using Keyforge's naming conventions and just putting quotations everywhere. But as I've now learned some new information, the Borderlands game.
New information has come to light.
It's just come to light. So in the Borderlands game, it's going to have a shift code, and if you play Borderlands, you know that you can enter this code into your game and then get some sort of specific loot. Maybe the new technology updates are you'll be able to take something from the game to input to your digital game to get some sort of exclusive skin, or maybe something that's specifically for the tabletop game. Again, this is all speculation. We have no basis in these rumors whatsoever. This is just me shooting off at the mouth here. But maybe that's what's going to help bridge the two and maybe have some connection like that.
Well, so they're apparently advancing the timeline a little bit because Cyberpunk was Cyberpunk 2020.
Yeah.
I think it was Cyberpunk, and then it was released Cyberpunk 2020 to advance the timeline a little bit. And now, seeing as how it is 2020,
Yeah.
and it's now alternate history as opposed to a grim future.
Right.
This is a grim present.
Yeah, Cyberpunk. I always love the joke that Cyberpunk is basically a couple years away from becoming the steampunk for people who like computers. Because it's just alternate history at this point.
Yeah.
But so it seems like they're advancing the timeline a little bit from 2020 to give a little bit of a buffer for you to feel like it's the future. And then I guess the video game is probably set after that.
Probably.
So it sounds like there's an interesting tie between the two of them. So I'm very excited about both.
Well, and it's interesting because there are people who are like diehard video game players who don't play tabletop at all, and then the reverse is also true. But there's a huge cross section that play both. And I think trying to tie into both of those audiences just brings you the largest possible market.
Especially, I think, for video games like Cyberpunk and stuff like that, video games that have a lot of lore in their universe, a lot of times it can be really hard to get that across in a good way while you're playing the video game.
Right.
Without just having to go read the codex or whatever it's going to be.
I don't want to read a billion books in Skyrim again.
Yeah, I love Destiny, and Destiny has amazing lore, but the Destiny lore is not usually front and center in the shooting times.
Right.
So this might be another very cool opportunity where maybe the video game will focus on a pretty clear storyline, and the RPG is going to allow people to get way more invested in the world around that. Hopefully.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Speaking of lore and universal lore,
Should do that first.
All right. Speaking of Laura,
There was a mutiny right there.
there was. Speaking of Laura,
Well, because we keep talking about all these video game, board game crossovers,
It's true.
so it just seems like the natural fit.
that's true. Square Enix is putting out a board game. Shocking to some fans. Square Enix, of course, known for the Final Fantasy series, Kingdom Hearts, RPGs in general. They also have an amazing group called the Square Enix Collective, which puts out some amazing indie games. The Tomb Raider game, Tomb Raider Legends, the board game.
So I was super excited when I saw that there was a Tomb Raider game. Crossover of one of my favorite video games growing up. Iconic female lead. I was thrilled to see this come into board game
You
world.
watched me play the new one too, quite a bit too.
Oh yeah. The new
I
one's
only
amazing.
played very little bit of it. I haven't gotten far enough.
It's real good.
The story is really good.
Real good.
Like the art is incredible. And then I started reading about this board game. The concept is very weird.
Yep.
Yeah, if you wanna,
So
let's put it in your words, Tifa.
players are competing over who is the real Laura Croft.
You have to admit that the idea of taking an iconic character and splitting them into multiple versions of themselves that have to compete to see who is the most them is both extremely comic book and extremely video game.
That is
So
true.
thus they made a board game out of it.
Yeah. And it does kind of seem like something Square Enix would do.
Yeah. Yeah, trust me. We've seen Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
We've seen Kingdom Hearts 3. Avengers Endgame's coming out, and there's going to be time crossovers with that. Like, it's just, that's the trend now, is like, let's just split the timeline and just meet your old self again.
I think comic book weirdness has infected everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at least, they're exploring ruins, doing actual Tomb Raider-y stuff. And I'll still check it out, but I was a little disappointed.
There's sometimes you just you hear about a game and you're like, okay, I imagine what this would be, and then you get it and you're like, that's not what I imagined at all. It's very weird. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
I was really excited because I was reading the components, and it was like, four Laura Croft things, a couple of counters, but then it was like injury markers. And I was like, all right, that's actually pretty funny because she gets beat up
All
a
the
lot.
time, yeah.
Like the amount of gruesome deaths I've seen in the last two Tomb Raider games is just ridiculous. So,
But I loved your idea of why didn't they make the little figures like the different Tomb Raider versions instead of just like the same figure with different colors?
yeah, it'd be like low-res polygon PlayStation 1 Laura, new Laura, and then like Angelina Jolie movie Laura. Like, you
It'd be
could have
amazing!
Probably because everybody would be fighting over low poly.
low poly Laura is the best Laura.
Well, so the thing that I found really interesting about this is it's Square Enix publishing this.
Yeah.
Not partnering with Steamforged or partnering with any other company. Square Enix has been putting out the Final Fantasy TCG that's been pretty popular, but even Gearbox, when they put out the Tiny Tina game, they partnered with somebody else to at least produce it. It's very interesting to see the big video game companies and the big IP companies step into the domain themselves as
Yeah.
opposed to through a proxy. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to pan out, and if this game does well, are we now going to see a Hitman game? Are we going to see a
sweet.
Deus Ex game? I mean, are we just going to, when a new video game comes out, a little while later, a board game that's going to come out? The
I
same
want
way
to
like,
live
a
in that
novel comes
world.
out?
That's the world I want to live in.
It makes me wonder if this is something that Square Enix solely has their hands on, right? This is their game versus something like Kingdom Hearts, which is a Square Enix and Disney game that the op is putting out for Talisman, right? So it's like there's so many different hoops
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't preclude them from doing licenses like Kingdom Hearts Talisman, but I'm very curious to see how many more companies will take that step.
I agree. I hope we see a lot more. I mean, the Borderlands announcing a card game was totally out of the
That's
blue
super
for me.
cool.
And of course, it was the joke because everyone was like, "Just show us Borderlands 3," and they did it, and they're like, "Great, that's the new game we want to talk about." And they're like, "Oh wait, we have more." But it's interesting, and I'm hoping that other companies see that and be like, "Maybe they're onto something. Maybe they're onto something."
Well, I mean, like the most mercenary level, people love merch.
Yeah.
People want to buy T-shirts. They want to own and engage with the things they love.
Yeah.
So if you also give me a card game, because I've already got a million T-shirts.
Three-Dragon Ante. Tifa, one of your favorite games.
Because I ruined your segue.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Speaking of lore,
Speaking of Tifa, Three-Dragon Ante.
speaking of Tifa, Three-Dragon Ante.
It's not one of my favorite games, but I do really like it.
You like that game. What is Three-Dragon Ante? I played it like once when I first started at Wizards.
I I actually haven't played it in a long time because it's been out of print for
What?
so long.
Well, then why are we talking about it?
It's back in print.
It's coming back. WizKids is releasing what's known as the Legendary Edition of Three-Dragon Ante. And this is, like we're talking about, like Gwent, this is the game that is played in the D&D universe. This is a game that your adventurer party sits down and plays, when they're resting, when they're at the inn.
It's at
when
the
they're
tavern.
When they're at the
Yeah,
tavern.
when you're at the tavern, this is what you like sit around and play, and it feels like that. And that's
You
one
either
of the
get offered an adventure or you play Three-Dragon Ante.
yeah, and
That's
that's
what
one of
happens
the
in
things I really like about it is that you could even like throw this into your D&D campaign and it would feel great.
I would do that and be like, I made no notes. You guys go to the inn and play Three-Dragon Ante, and then I would just go eat.
Do that.
I would go make a sandwich.
Yes,
Make myself dinner and play some video games.
I think you should do that in our D&D campaign if we ever start playing again.
Come
You
back.
don't think D&D has space for like going into the tavern and then finding out that there's no tables because the whole area is taken over by some extremely competitive Three-Dragon Ante tournament?
Oh my god, that's
And then to talk to the
amazing.
NPC, they have to advance further enough to face them one. Come on.
Sweet. So there's no room. There's a big old tournament here. We're sorry. It's Three-Dragon Ante. It's Lady Planeswalker's Three-Dragon Ante night.
Lady Dragon Ante night.
Well, so I mean, we don't know what this Legendary Edition is. Not a whole lot of details have come out, but I just think that D&D fans are going to be super excited to actually be able to go and purchase this game.
Yes.
And not have to scour on eBay.
It's been really hard to find.
I have a copy of, because there was Three-Dragon Ante, and then there was the sequel whose name I can't remember right now.
Oh, right.
It was called Three-Dragon Ante something.
Yeah.
And I have that, but I don't have a copy of Three-Dragon Ante. So it'll be great to actually be able to get that.
I had it too. I had that game. I can't remember what it
Right?
was.
See? Tip of the tongue.
Legacy? No, it was Leah's Legacy game.
Three-Dragon Ante Legacy.
is
All
like-
right, dragons eat you.
Yeah. Was it like Dwarven Hammer or something
Nope.
like that? No? All right. I got nothing.
I'm sure somebody in the chat knows.
Someone in chat, tell us what it is if you know what the sequel to Three-Dragon Ante was.
Okay, what's next?
What's next? We're going to dive into some more little headlines here and just some interesting stuff that we want to talk about.
Is it that one next?
Yes. I got it right here.
Oh, we have different notes.
We have
Sorry,
different notes.
everybody.
Different notes. Real Tifa, you come back. You're just throwing
This
me
is
off
like
my
every
game.
yeah. Oh, this is I think 3 weeks in a row where I have like messed up my notes somehow.
It's tradition.
It's now a tradition.
Now tradition. So the U.S. playing card company, otherwise known as Bicycle, Bicycle playing cards, is putting a game out, which they've done before. They had like 1 or 2 games out there, and I find this is really, really interesting because the game they're putting out is called Tattoo Stories.
So Mike and I are interested. Interesting?
I mean, we're interesting.
Interesting.
We were immediately interested as tattoo fans.
Then I looked at it. It's basically like Pictionary. It's Pictionary. You have like 5 elements, and you have to like make a tattoo on a little whiteboard, which. All right.
Pictionary, the party game.
Yeah, it's Pictionary, the party game. What interests me the most about this, though, what makes me the most interesting about it, is the fact that it's Bicycle. Like, Bicycle playing cards is like, I don't want to say trying to get into the game market because you can buy a deck of cards and play any game, so they've
Right.
been there. But it's interesting that they're trying to get into like
The hobby game.
Yeah, the
Party.
hobby game.
This is like a party game.
Yeah. Super interesting. That's all we got. Which is again just stuff we're going to touch on. Super interesting. I don't know what we can expect to
Well,
see.
you might say the theme is larger companies paying attention to hobby game space.
Yeah.
This ties into that.
Yeah. This is something that I'm just really interested about here. And it's just Czech Games is releasing a co-op word game called Letter Jam.
Because you know what people that like words games think? I want to make words with friends.
Well, and
You might be onto something there.
words with
Let's explore that. Let's make it
Did you
happen.
realize
Let's do it.
did you realize you made that
I
joke?
didn't until I said it.
Nice, even better. But here's what Derek said, and this is like I was sold, is we're all like everyone. It's code names with words.
Or Hanabi.
Or Hanabi. Like we're all trying to make a word, but we can't see the letters that are right in front of us. That sounds super interesting to me, and it's gonna like anger people and get them ragey, and I can't wait.
It's gonna be hilarious.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, Hanabi is one of my favorite co-op games. So again, we don't have a whole lot of details on this yet, but it does seem like it's Hanabi, but you're forming letters instead of giving people clues about what's in their hand. It sounds like what you're trying to do is build a letter that will help. I'm trying to build a word that will tell the two of you what letters you have in your hand.
Right? Like,
So what I'm looking forward to is my dyslexia just messing this game up completely.
Well, hopefully they printed in dyslexia-friendly font, because otherwise. But yeah, like again, I can see it's like, what the hell word are you trying to say? Like, what is it? Tell me.
Interesting, obviously.
All right, I think industry is officially
That's it,
approved
that was
for
last.
use.
Yep, it is now. It is a perfectly cromulent word.
Scrabble approved.
Yeah.
Scrabble legal.
It's only legal in the Harry Potter Scrabble.
Should we call it Scrabbleable?
Scrabbleable.
Is that Scrabbleable?
There you go. Is it Scrabbleable? All right. Speaking of more craziness here, Tonari. IDW is publishing Tonari, and you were interested in this because of the design brains behind it.
Well, it's designed by the same man who made Citadels.
Bruno
Citadel
Fedeli?
and Masquerade. Yeah.
Masquerade is I love that game.
Yeah, and Citadels is like a classic,
Yeah.
so that had me interested right away.
So what is it, a fishing game? Like cooperative, competitive? Again, we don't know much about this. It's just things that are coming out. We're seeing like box art, and this is just stuff we want to quickly touch base on.
A lot of the stuff that is falling out from, still there were so many previews that happened at GTS, at the Gamma Trade Show, that like news of that is still kind of filtering out. People are still trying to get a grip on what some of these games are going to mean. But from the description so far, you're basically like fishing, and you're trying to catch bigger fish worth more points and stuff like that. But it sounds like it has a little bit of an element of Between Two Cities. And if neither of you have played that, that's a game where you are building two cities, one on either side of you, and you're partnering with whoever is to your left and your right to build that city. And you want to score the most points for the city, but it's a weird balance where like you want to generate a lot of points, but if the person to your left, their other city is also doing really well, maybe you don't want this city to score. It's a very interesting kind of dynamic.
So in this dynamic, it would be like Mike would want one of the Tifas to win, or the Tifas would want to win.
Well, so in Between Two Cities it is. In Tonari, it sounds like you're not playing to both sides. You're playing just to your left.
Okay.
So it seems to be a little bit more focused, basically.
Yeah.
So it's almost like Mike and I are a team, but you and I are a team, and you and him are a team. And
Crazy.
That's how it gets scored.
Yeah.
So it's neat. Like the ideas are, I like games that kind of play with that boundary a little bit, to give you a reason to both partner with and betray other people at the table.
Yeah.
A little more directly than just, I can. So it's interesting. I'm intrigued.
More likely to have people get ragey.
That's what we want.
That's always what we want.
Yeah.
Maximum lore, maximum rage. That's what we want.
That's the bar. Upper Deck has announced a whole bunch of new stuff coming out for one of my favorite deck building games, Marvel Legendary. Legendary system, of course, has a ton of different offshoots and other IPs, but Marvel Legendary still going strong, which I am honestly shocked the amount of playtests we have done for this game.
It's a
Devin
good game.
Devin Lowe, of course, local to Seattle. We've playtested a bunch. It's awesome. Marvel Legendary is doing Legendary Dimensions, which I am sold on this set, and I am really mad at Devin for not asking me to playtest this set. And Devin, if you're watching, we need to have a talk, young man.
Maximum rage is what you're saying.
All right, so here's the thing: 3 new heroes: Score Girl,
Yay!
Jessica Jones,
Yay!
Miss America. Already amazing. You would love America, by the way.
'Kay.
Also, amazing. All right.
I mean, Jessica Jones, you can't really get better than that.
The return of Man-Thing, who's awesome. Howard the Duck, who only got one card in the Civil War II set. So we got Howard the Duck back, which I'm very excited about. I have opinions and thoughts about this, all right?
I've noticed.
This
It's
is-
become apparent to me.
And wait, and the best part, the mastermind in this set is J. Jonah Jameson. What is his scheme going to be? Bring me pictures of Spider-Man? Is that that's it?
I really hope so.
I hope that's all it is.
Pictures of Spider-Man, bring them to me.
Bring them to me. That's all it is. But like, this is awesome. This set sounds amazing, and I am in for it. Like, maybe it's like a cosmic, JJJ. Like, who knows? But it sounds awesome. And who's he gonna like? Who's his army gonna be? It's gonna
So
be.
I'm going to tell you right now, don't buy the first version because you're going to want the 200 card expansion that releases later.
Coming to Gen Con, there's a new release format after that. A 200-card expansion called Legendary Revelations. What revelations are happening? Is this after the snap? Is this going to take place? Again, there's so many things. Who knows what's going to be seen? I'm excited. I'm also angry at Devin for not calling me for this and not emailing me and being like, hey, do you want to come play test? Because so many good people in this, and I could have been like, let's talk about Howard the Duck. Because I love Howard the Duck. This would have been a thing.
It would have just turned into a Howard the Duck legendary expansion.
That's exactly what would have
I
happened.
don't think that would have bothered him.
That would not have bothered me
Clearly,
at all.
he's on board with that.
I am 100%
Maximum
on
Duck.
board. Greatest movie of the 80s, Fight Me? It's not. It's really not that good of a movie.
I don't feel like that was a legendary battle. There.
It was not. They had Thomas Dolby doing the soundtrack and Leah Thompson singing. So
How come all our fights can't be these?
Right? In addition to Legendary, Versus System, the 2PCG, the two-player card game.
You have thoughts and feelings on this game too, don't you?
I love this game. Actually, I wish I actually had more time to play it. I wish I had more time to buy some of the expansions. And they're releasing expansions slightly different now. Instead of doing small box, they're also doing just packs, which I find really interesting. Here's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. There's a Children of the Atom storyline launching in Q2.
So apparently, like the current storyline that's following Infinity War, I guess, is wrapping up right around the movie time, and they're launching this new one afterwards.
Right, but Children of the Atom was the X-Men fighting game in the arcade. Like, are we getting an X-Men fighting game? Is after this, are we going to
Is
see?
this the Welcome to Die game?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
No, that's the four-player.
Okay.
No, this is the actual fighting game. That was the fighting game. So, if we're going to follow that storyline, then after that, we get X-Men versus Street Fighter.
Okay.
And then after that, we get Marvel versus Capcom.
So are you saying that you would not like that? Because I have a feeling you're
No,
all on board.
I would 100% like if that was a thing. I would be all for that. I don't know that Capcom is willing to just dole out. I mean, Capcom had the Street Fighter with the USF system, so who knows?
But how does Howard the Duck fit into your plans here?
He just wins everything.
Okay.
Upper Deck if you're looking for a hype man.
Yo. This guy right here. But then also really neat in the Versus system, of course, is also branching out. There's an Aliens, Buffy the Vampire Slayer that they're doing. James Bond in Q4 Versus system where,
I read that line at least 4 times before I was like, yep, read it right.
Yeah. Upper Deck has been doing some interesting thing with their games and their IPs that they're sort of, encroaching on. I just hope, look, if we got a legendary Big Trouble in Little China, I want a Versus System 2PCG of Big Trouble in Little China expansion as well. So it'd be great. Basically, if it's a Fox branded, but Disney owns Fox now.
Disney owns almost
We're gonna get
everyone.
the Simpsons Versus System 2PCG.
I was about to say Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts 2PCG.
Simpsons and Kingdom Hearts.
Are we gonna get Simpsons World and Kingdom Hearts 4? That would be
I like
amazing.
how the longer we talk, the further we drift away from reality and news, and the further we just drift into. Wouldn't it be nice?
Look, you said you wanted speculation and discussion. We are giving it to you.
Howard the Duck versus Donald Duck.
Battle of the Ducks. I would be for that. Howard the Duck would just shoot him, though. Like, Howard the Duck's not afraid to just pull a gun out and shoot him.
But if you bring Scrooge McDuck in, who knows what's going to happen?
He's technically kind of immortal if you watch the new DuckTales series, so that's a thing. Woo! Our producers are just like, we're off the rails.
We have no chat anymore.
If Kristen's here, she'd be like, yeah, she's in chat going like this right now. Kristen's like, you guys hurry up.
We need to disable that emote for her.
All right, moving on. Pegasus Spiel is releasing an RPG based on what else? Talisman.
I felt like you needed some piece of Talisman.
It would not be a TableTakes if we don't talk about Talisman. Talisman Adventures, the fantasy role-playing game, releasing at Gen Con. I'm starting to think I need to go spend a ton of money at Gen Con this year. There's so many things releasing.
I support that plan.
Yeah. I mean, Tiva's Kickstarter was successful. We got money
True.
now.
Yeah, that's what that money's for.
That's what that money's for. But Talisman, fantasy role-playing game, fantasy world featuring evil wizards, imps, witches, knights standing on bridges, dragons, werewolves, and more. Like, this sounds like if there's a fantasy trope, it's in this.
Yep. I mean, Talisman is classic fantasy. This is going to be an RPG about classic fantasy.
The PCs are going to be humans, elves, sprites, ghouls, and trolls traveling the realm, fighting evil and collecting talismans.
I really hope there's one person in chat who's like the biggest Talisman fan who takes clips of every time we've talked about it on the show and just turn it into one reel.
A Talisman mega edit.
The Talisman supercut. This is really interesting. It's a 3d6 system with one of the dice determining fate. I love this idea.
Yeah.
There's a lot of RPGs that have used stuff like that recently. I think Wrath and Glory for Warhammer did something similar. There's a number that kind of do that, where you have like the die for your success and your failure,
Yeah.
but then you have a die for maybe degree of success or like
Yeah.
weird complications or something like that. So it looks like that might be how it's going.
Yeah. Scratchpad Publishing does that with their RPGs.
Yeah. So that's coming at Gen Con. And that's it for headlines. Lots of headlines. Most importantly, Howard the Duck.
Sure.
Sure.
Battle of the Ducks.
Battle of the Ducks.
Watch out for it on Kickstarter.
So to turn to bundles, as we have traveled across the rail.
Nice. No, good. No, I like
Anyway, there's a big bundle for Traveler with the I think maybe so the lower tier has like player's guide options, character options, stuff like that, and then there's the higher tier that has the full rules, the campaign settings, some more adventures and things like that. So it kind of ties into the Stars Without Number bundle that Christian's talked about before.
Yep.
They're all kind of like, there seems to be a bit of a retro sci-fi exploratory adventure-y thing on on Bundle of Holding. So if that's up your alley, you can go buy a couple bundles and get a whole bunch of material to last you for a real long time.
Awesome. All right. Cool. That's it for bundles. Kickstarters with Tifa.
Yeah.
The literal Kickstarter queen.
Literal Kickstarter queen.
My Kickstarter was successful. For anyone who might have been paying attention to that, super exciting. Going on this week, most importantly, Wizard Kittens. So I instantly went and backed this.
Yeah.
Knew nothing. Like, Wizard Kittens, a magical card game, done.
I added it to the list and I was like, she's just going to go back to this. She doesn't need the notes.
Yeah. So it's an adorable semi-cooperative set collecting game. Games are 15 to 30 minutes, which I think is super great. I am starting to really dig games that are short because having a 2-year-old, I can actually play them if they're short. Speaking of having a 2-year-old, this game is also aimed for children as young as 7, which is super exciting because we're always looking for more kid-friendly games. Semi-cooperative, which is a great element. If players don't defeat all the curses, then the player with the fewest penalty wins instead of the most points, which is an interesting
That's cool.
twist on how to do win conditions. Everybody gets to pick which wizard kitten they want to be. So if there's a best wizard kitten, there will be battles, I'm sure.
Is there like a necromancer kitten wizard? Because that's...
I backed it so fast I don't even know.
I think you mean a necromancer.
And there's a plushie available.
Did you back at the plushie level?
Not yet.
You're going to go up it later? All right.
Probably.
Well, there's only 2 days left. If you're gonna up it.
Yeah, you got
Yeah, so that, why even talk about other Kickstarters? How could there possibly be more? All right, other Kickstarters ending in the next week. Root the Underworld expansion. So I'm not super familiar with Root.
You haven't had a chance to play Root yet?
I have not.
So I've played a couple games. I've taught people the beginning games. Like, I adore Root. Root is nuts. You ready? So it's basically, in the base game, imagine that there are 4 different board games happening simultaneously on the same board.
Okay.
Because it's so asymmetrical that each faction plays by completely different rules. They all mesh perfectly with each other, but it's a completely different game. So
is it like Century coming together? Only
no,
it
not,
just
not quite. So like what it is like there's 4 different factions. You're all trying to kind of control, like, gain points, so like control the board. But like there's the Cat Kingdom, and the Cat Kingdom is just a very traditional, like, you want to expand in territory, build a building. The building makes resources. Use the resources to recruit guys to build buildings, and it's a very straightforward game that way.
Yeah.
But then there is the birds, and the birds are like the royalty that used to rule the area, and they're very political. So you have to like give a speech every turn, a speech which is like you're playing out your cards.
Neat. Yeah.
And you're gonna be like, I pledge to my people that we are gonna recruit, and we are gonna move, and we are gonna battle. And then you play out the cards to do that. But then because you're a bird, parrots, you have to every turn
Eat a cracker.
you have to keep the same speech, but add more to it every turn.
man.
That's
And the moment you can't fulfill your campaign promises, you are beheaded, and a new leader is elected, and your whole so there's that game, and then there's the.
This sounds like Azorius.
So then there's the small woodland creatures like the rabbits and the mice and stuff like that. But they're oppressed, so they're trying to lead the rebellion.
That's amazing!
So they're trying to get sympathy from all around the board, so they can cause villages to revolt and overthrow their oppressors.
How have I not played this game?
No, ready? You're gonna like it even more. And then the fourth player plays the Vagabond, which is an adorable samurai raccoon who wanders through the forests, trading with everybody. And fighting them all.
Okay.
What is
So-
this? Is every Kingdom Hearts game and every new mechanic that they've committed shoved into one game.
So, like, the way that it's also been described is it's the Vietnam War, except super adorable wooden creatures.
Oh my God! Because when you think of Vietnam War, you
Yep.
think of super adorable creatures.
So it's an amazing game.
Wow.
That sounds awesome.
There's just so much like richness in the game because once you play one faction, just go play another one, and you basically have a new game.
Yeah.
And there was an expansion that came out that added river folk, who were like a mercenary trading company that could hire their soldiers out, and it added a lizard cult that would serve the oppressed underclasses by giving them it's very crazy.
wow.
So now there's another expansion.
Yeah.
Wow.
That
The
is
Underworld.
Yep. So it's all like new maps, a couple new factions. I think there's the conspiracy of the Corvids.
Yeah.
Corvid conspiracy. There's 2 new maps that are like in caves and stuff like that.
Cool.
Root is fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah,
Dang.
so go check that out. Domina Anthology. 5 days left on this one. 3 new games featuring Worlds of Mystery. This is an anime style from Japanime Games. Am I saying that right?
Japanime.
Japanime. 3 new games. One is called Argote, another Prelea, and the last one, words are hard. Mirrorless, magical mirror, allows players to go into a dream world.
Yeah, so this is like one Kickstarter. It's one Kickstarter for 3 different
Yeah.
games, and they all play differently. But like the kind of unifying thing is that they all have like a very rich anime art style, kind of like what you would see in like anime light novels, fantasy novels, things like that. So if you really love the aesthetic of anime heroines and magical adventure, it's something to check out.
There you go.
Yeah. We talked about Lone Chart Games earlier, and Mike Selinker. They have a Kickstarter going on right now. The Mesa Games Omnibus and Escape Room experience, which they're known for their amazing escape rooms. Awesome that they're bringing it into the Mesa Games. New book, new puzzles, and an escape room for Mike Selinker and Pete Venter's epic puzzle novel, The Mesa Games.
Which itself is basically an escape room in book form.
You must be very excited. Escape room and escape room.
I'm so excited.
They should have an escape room.
I believe they're partnering with Gabby, who left Lone Chart Games to go and create escape rooms on her own, which she partnered. So I think they're Gabby just can't escape Lone Shark.
And they are bringing it.
Escape room.
They are bringing it to an escape room in Seattle, which is just really exciting.
I think it's open now.
Woo!
Or at least I think you can start booking. Part of the Kickstarter is that.
That's rad.
So there's only 5 days left. Very excited, especially if you're into puzzles at all. Flapjack Flip Out, another Seattle local designer. Dexterity and memory game.
You flip
around.
It's cute.
Yeah,
You flip pancakes.
it's been around. I've seen it demoed at conventions for a while.
He's brought it to PAX a number of times.
Yeah, I think he's been working on it since 2008. But you're flipping pancakes, which is a cute idea for a dexterity
You've got
game.
like a little cardboard skillet or whatever, and you're grabbing pancakes from the central of the stack. You put it in the skillet. You got to flip it over, see what it is, see if you want to keep it, things like that.
Aesthetically, it's very different than what you'd normally see.
No, I got whole wheat pancakes. Worst.
So yeah, I think it's cute. Looks neat.
It's got 6 days left.
Yeah,
And it needs attention.
it does. I think it's only at 60% or something.
Give it some love. It looks super cute. Looks super fun.
Sword Loser and Tool User. That's fun to say. Say that 3 times really fast. A pair of casual tabletop stories, games in zine form.
Hey,
I
so
remembered
right.
how
There
to
you go.
say zine. Another zine quest, 12-page RPGs about swords and magical items. How could you go wrong?
Yeah, well, the trick there is that, like, I think Sword Loser is, you're telling a story about this, like, amazing swordsman who is, like, super powerful, but they can't stop losing their weapons. And then Tool User, I guess, is you're exploring the weird collections of stuff that this goblin, I think, like a goblin or a witch or something like that, just has been hoarding stuff for years and years and years, so you're exploring their weird collection. But the trick is you're supposed to draw everything. So in Sword User, you're drawing all the swords that this person is losing. So you're telling the story about, and you're drawing the magic sword.
That's actually super cool.
So it kind of ties into, like, I think we talked about some of the other RPGs where, like, you end up with this artifact afterward. So, like, you have your gaming group over for the week or for the evening. Everybody draws that, and then you can put up on your fridge all the cute drawings of your gaming group.
You go open the fridge. Sword Loser is basically the Tenacious D song tribute in RPG form. It's like, look, this isn't the greatest sword in the world because I lost it. This is just the tribute. Like that's what that reminds me of. It's like,
really good.
It's like, hey, this isn't the sword we found. This is just like what I remembered it looking like. Sounds awesome though. Back it. That sounds really fun.
Super chibi villains. Chibi have my attention already.
Villains, I got mine.
Have you seen this one?
No, but
You're gonna want to, because, like,
probably.
yeah, because, like, this has basically everything and all but name, like, Street Fighter villains.
In. Sorry, production. I was just right in the mic. I just did that. I'm in for that. And it's chibi, like chibi Street Fighter. I'm all about this.
Super. I also didn't look at them, and now I'm instantly regretting not looking at
Feel like
them.
I'm on the way home.
Super deformed, bad to the bone, seriously cute. These are just some of the things
Like, what more do you
describing.
need? 7 days left. Go back this
Yeah,
one.
so it's basically
That's
like
great.
minis for super deformed anime/fighting game villains. Like, I can't remember the King of Fighters, I think. So basically, it feels like Street Fighter, King of Fighters, that kind of aesthetic.
Nice. All right.
Like, there's a lady in a suit, I think, with, like, fishnet gloves and a knife and stuff. So
All right, yeah, sure. It's not King is the name. The Queen. We call it the Queen. All right. That's a deep cut for you fighting game fans.
And Witch and Craft 5th edition supplemental. 7 days left. Tabletop supplemental of crafting and magic for 5th edition games. Either of you?
I mean, Ghibli-esque
say?
supplement about domestic magic. So obviously you're referring to Studio Ghibli, right? Yeah. Great. Of course, some of the most amazing animes and storytelling movies I have ever seen. The fact that they're doing a domestic magic inspired supplement is awesome. And we've talked about this a lot. One of the things I really like about a lot of these supplements that are coming out, I'm really enjoying how many are using D&D 5th edition rules. Just be like, hey, you already know how to play it. Here's a new format for you to try it in.
Yeah.
well, they're also kind of going in a different direction, because I think the real, like, shtick of this is the art looks like it could be out of a Ghibli-inspired kind of anime. You know, it's very soft, it's very adorable. The art style actually really reminds me of Ryutama, which, you know, hopefully some people are familiar with. It was just a Japanese game, a role-playing game that was brought over that was as much about, like, trading and exploring and trying out new foods and, like, having experiences more than it was necessarily about killing monsters. So it looks like it's trying to bring a little bit of that, like, crafting, production, like, quieter magic kind of stuff. And then the other interesting thing is that this is from the same company or same design that did Fairy Fire.
That is super interesting, actually. Yeah.
And that was like it was also on Kickstarter, and that was a crazy, like, book of, you know, fae creatures, but all in a super neon, like, 80s aesthetic. So like pink fire and crazy hair and, like, huge shoulder pads on Oberon and stuff like that.
So they like to go over the top, is basically.
Well, they went over the top there, and
Yeah.
it's a very different aesthetic here.
Yeah.
But I'm just very intrigued that they're exploring aesthetic styles that are you don't usually see in tabletop games.
Right. Yeah.
All right, we got a few minutes left. You got 2 more you want to talk about
Yes.
that are not ending soon.
Yeah. So a couple Kickstarters that kind of recently started. Sea Rovers, there's 20 days left on this one. I'm bringing this up because I was excited to see a board game from an indie designer that is pirate themed, so instantly grabbed my attention. But it's based in history. Not only is it pirate themed, but it's actually a card-driven board game based in true history from the 17th century in the Caribbean and North Atlantic. So I think that that's really cool to sort of pull into that. People love pirates.
The map was very cool.
Yeah.
You know, like it was just that the Caribbean kind of set on a hex grid.
Yeah.
With a very, very kind of nice style.
Yep, Euro-style game with hex-based movement. There's 12 turns, so, you know, set amount of turns. Each turn has like 7 phases that you go through. So, you know, very reminiscent of other Euro games. I think it's worth checking out. It also is like needs some love, if that sounds like something you're interested in.
It also has 20 days left.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But Sea Rovers, I'll run one word. And a game I have played multiple times at conventions, Blood on the Clocktower. Very, very excited for this. If you're a fan of social deduction games at all, this was super unique. They do a couple different things from what I've seen in other social deduction games. Every single person has a unique role that is very important to the game. There's no elimination. So yes, players get killed during the night or lynched during the day, but they still can continue in the conversations. They have what's called a ghost vote, which means they can still influence the game, and I've seen that drastically make a difference.
Yeah, I've watched you play a couple, and I've sat in and watched, and I think the most interesting thing is the fact that you're not just a villager, right? And then when you die, you don't just sit there for 30 minutes afterwards.
So what is the premise? I mean, people are probably familiar with Secret Hitler. They're probably familiar with Werewolf and Mafia. What are you sitting down to do?
So it's like sort of a standard town situation where you're all in a town and a demon murders somebody at the beginning of the game, and all the townsfolk are trying to figure out, who is this demon that came? Like, who is the demon? Could be any one of us situation. And it's really like, yes, the theme is interesting, but it's really the mechanics that make this a unique experience.
And on the demon side, there's like a poisoner that's working for the demon. Isn't it like a cult leader?
Yeah, there's like the standard demon, and then they have minions, and there's 5 different minion options.
Right.
And some really interesting things. And just for an example, for one of the roles that I think is hilarious is there's a drunk role, and whoever is running the game can assign the drunk role to somebody, and they don't know they're drunk, but their ability is going to malfunction. And like a lot of social deduction games, you're constantly questioning, okay, we have this information, but we could be wrong because of these reasons. This takes that on a whole new level where you have to think of all these different layers, which makes it a lot harder to metagame. And it's really fun. And also, you can have secret conversations instead of it being like all information has to be known. You can take one person and like go in a separate room and have a side conversation. So it just totally changes.
It's interesting to see that get on Kickstarter now, because I know that they have been at PAX's for a couple of years. They've been at Gen Con for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So I've worked with them to get them space at Gen Con, and they were very, very busy, very well received. So it's great to see them kind of finally releasing, basically.
Yeah.
Well, and they're doing the cool thing of there's only 2 tiers to back. Well, you can, of course, pledge at any level to support them, but you can either get the game or there's a retail game. So it makes a very easy decision. Like, can I afford this amount of money that I'm, going to get this game? So yeah, those are the Kickstarters for the week. And Blood on the Clocktower just started yesterday, so there's still a month, but wanted to bring it up.
Great. We don't got time for a topic, unfortunately. This is a topic. No, it's fine. It's a topic. It's too big to discuss in 5 minutes.
You, Howard the Duck diatribe, cost you the topic.
I'm fine with that if that means Howard the Duck and Legendary and all of these amazing things get more notice, which is totally fine. So we are going to end just a few minutes early, which is fine. We'll be back next week for a brand new episode of TableTakes presented by Gen Con. Where can people find you on the internet, should they want to find you?
You can take a look at my Kickstarter page at tifarobles.com.
And
But
feel
I'll be
sad that they weren't involved.
Well, she's she's
I'll
adding.
update it soon.
Well, and also you're gonna add the thing where you can still back and get a copy of the book. Right?
Well, you can't still back, but
Well, sorry, well, you
there
can-
will be
you can
there
pre-order
will
a
be a
copy
way
of the
that you
book.
can pre-order the book, and I'll probably start redirecting to my blog again.
Congratulations again.
Thank you, and yeah, please follow me on Twitter, Instagram, all the things. Tifa Robles.
Fake Tifa can be found at Frequent Beef in most places.
There you go. And I am the Mike Robles across most social medias. So with that, thank you very much to Gen Con for allowing us to do this show. Thanks again to Derek. Thank you to our wonderful producers hanging out in the back there doing all the hard work and keeping the chat. Thank you to our mods in chat also for taking care of everyone in there and providing them links.
Hopefully next week we have Emma and Christian back.
They should be back. Well, Emma should be back unless she gets stuck in Boston and if Christian cannot escape from the void. So make sure you're clapping all day, every day. If you don't clap nonstop for 24 hours, Christian will not return. So make sure you keep clapping. Until then, this has been Gen Con. This has been Table Takes presented by Gen Con. We'll see you next week, everybody.